There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out. Slowly feel all that's around you. All that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, we unite. Yeah, yeah, when we unite. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here.
Welcome, Center for Spiritual Living, Ocala, friends and family. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I am so glad that you have chosen to spend a little time with us this afternoon or whenever it is that you are watching. I am the spiritual director of Center for Spiritual Living, Ocala, and we're going to start by telling you a little bit about who we are as we share our community values. Now, we are just one of over 300 centers for spiritual living that are located throughout North America and the rest of the world. And so every one of us is independent, and we have a vision and mission as a larger organization, but this happens to be our values, and we'll be sharing our vision and mission in a minute. But This is what is important to us. And I always start out with talking about our values because I think that's a great way for people to know if we're a match. If you value the same things we do, then maybe we are part of your tribe or you're a part of ours. So, the first thing on our list is spiritual growth and practice. It is the reason we all come together as community. And we value love. That's right at the top of our list there. We believe that love is where we come from, and love is the essence we return to and what we're meant to share while we're here on this planet. We value appreciation and believe that the things that we appreciate and give thanks for grow in our awareness and understanding. That's what appreciation means. We value community, that's gathering of like minds and like hearts. We value freedom, creativity, health and wholeness, generosity, financial well being. I ran through all of those last things. You know, if you want to catch some more, you can watch another one of our talks because I go through the same thing every time. But it is an important thing to know what your values are. And so, our vision and mission, as I mentioned, we're just one of many centers for spiritual living located all over. And our vision at this Center for Spiritual Living is that we are a model center for spiritual living as evidenced by the transformational impact we have on our own spiritual community, on the larger Centers for Spiritual Living organization, and our community at large. So that means that we're doing what we came here to do if our lives are working, right? If my life is working well, then I'm on my spiritual path. And if the things that we are sharing and doing through the Center for Spiritual Living is helping you live your best life, then that's a win for us. Our mission is to empower individuals to awaken to the power and presence that lies within and all around them. Whatever you call that thing, whether you call it God or creator or spirit or energy, the universe, whatever it is, it's inside of you and it is all around us and we're all part of it. Can't be separate if we wanted to. So that is what we are about. And we are, for this year, we've been doing a study from a book called See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. And it's just a phenomenal book that really is about love, about loving others, about loving our so-called opponents and loving ourselves. And every month has been a different aspect of that journey. And so for this last part of the year, we're talking about loving ourselves. And her analogy, her metaphor for this process is the birth process. And in birthing, we know that there is a breathing. This is loving ourselves, right? We have to take time to breathe. We have to take time sometimes to push, and we breathe and we push and we breathe and we push. And at some point, there's the transition for that new thing that is wanting to emerge and to be born. And transition can be tricky, It's we're always in transition in some form or another, but some of those transitions are bigger and more life altering. In fact, the word transition means that we're going from one state of being to another. And I think we can all relate to that in some form or fashion through this challenge we have had through the pandemic. I think most everyone I know is in some sort of transition. So this month for November, we have been talking about the nature of transition, talking to different folks, our guests, about what those transitions might feel like. And today we're going to speak about transition in terms of the larger spiritual community. We've always been a little bit different. You know, we're the people who are spiritual but not religious. And well, I'm not going to get into too much more about that, but I do want to introduce to you one of our guests that will be joining us today. His name is Reverend Dan Granda, and let me get his bio here for you. It's just really lovely. Reverend Dan is dedicated to a graceful uncovering of the human soul, imagining a world where it is common and lovingly accepted to bare your soul openly for others to see. Devoted to studying the evolution of human collective awareness, Reverend Dan can regularly be heard speaking to this shift happening in our world, inviting individuals to embrace the responsibility we have to each other and to the community around themselves. Reverend Dan is co founder and co director of Soul Evolution Collaborative, an outreach of the Orlando Center for Spiritual Living, dedicated to fostering both personal transformation and communal evolution through an innovative bricks and clicks model. So we're a little different, we're a little different, and Dan is there on the edge, bringing us and our organization along with some other folks into what spiritual community may look like or an option for the future. So let's bring in Reverend Dan. Hey, Dan.
Hey.
Gosh, I love your bio. It's so beautiful.
Isn't that fun?
Just really, really lovely. I thank you so much. And, I love when my community is introduced to different people and different ways of praying. And also, thank you for saying yes to doing our invocation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to take myself out here and let you.
For sure.
Screen.
So if you are comfortable joining us in closing your eyes and just bringing your attention, your awareness inward, whatever that means for you, bringing that place that is conscious, that thing in us that is conscious, and bringing that inside, because there is something inside of us that has always known, that always knows, that continues to know that we are all connected to this one source, this thing that has created everything out of itself. This thing that was in existence before there was time and space and form and life as we know it. There was this conscious being, something that is indescribable, and yet we continuously attempt to name the ways, the infinite ways that this thing shows up in life. And so we call it God, we call it spirit, we call it source, we call it so many different things, attempting to become more and more aware of the allness of life that is. And so this thing resides within us. We are connected to this thing through this place within us that knows, that has always known, that continues to know. And this place is within our soul. It is something that moves with us and urges us that we are, through this soul, through the thing within us, we are the thing that has created life. Life has created life out of itself, to know itself, to experience itself. And so we are that which echoes and amplifies this self-knowingness. We are the way that life shows up. We are the thing that allows life to know itself in this existence. And so I am simply here just to bless this experience, this time that we have to come together, to bless this community, to recognize the many ways that this source continuously flows through the members of this community out into the world. That what is done here is not solely just for us as individuals, but it is done in a way that allows us to come together as individuals into a community, and allows this community to bring what it knows, what it values, what it transforms out into the world. We bring these things out into the world to make a different life, to consciously create that which is around us, to allow life to mirror back to us all that we believe, and to do this with the awareness that we are consciously and consistently co-creating the world that is around us. So I know that being here in this very moment, in this very place, is an absolute blessing to every single one of us and beyond. And so I simply express gratitude for this opportunity, for coming together, for this knowing, for the ability to create and co-create, the ability to recognize the nature of the universe and life itself. And so I simply release this word and release the idea, the blessing that is CSL Ocala out into the universe, knowing that this blessing goes in every direction tenfold, that it is so much more than anything we could possibly realize here, that it is blessing lives in every direction infinitely. And so knowing this, we simply release it and let it go, and close by saying, and so it is. Hmm.
Ah, lovely. Thank you so much, Dan.
Of course.
That was just beautiful. I love to hear different people pray, and that just, yes, grounded us beautifully. So thank you. Thank you so much for your presence, for your wisdom, I'm really excited to have this conversation. I've been wanting to have this talk
Yeah,
for a
this
while.
is great. I love this topic. Thanks for having me.
Yes, yes. And it could be one of several, who knows? So I'm going to bring in our two practitioners. You just met Donna backstage. Hey, Donna. This is Donna.
Hi.
And Norma Anderson, the dynamic
Hello.
duo of Your Phoenix is Rising.
Awesome.
Our two
Hey.
practitioners, yes. And these
Yeah.
ladies do a lot of traveling, right? Donna is a nurse and has been traveling throughout COVID, helping in different places. And so they've had opportunities to see lots of different spiritual communities. And so I think this will be an interesting conversation. So thank you. It looks like we lost Norma.
Uh-oh.
She disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know what's happening with my lighting either, so I'm hoping it stays where it's supposed to be. But
All right.
we're not home.
You are at home or you're not at home?
We're not at home. We're still in Atlanta. So you don't
those
know
are
where
tough.
the spots are
Yeah.
for the internet. So, we just do our best. Give ourselves some grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Give ourselves a little grace. That's something we've talked about a lot this year, right?
Absolutely.
Love, loving ourselves, right? Give yourself the grace. So, so transition, right? There's so much transition going on, and Center for Spiritual Living Ocala is going through a lot of transition right now. We are in a process of just kind of rebooting, and seeing how we want to come back in January. Like, what do we want our spiritual community to look like? Right? We know what it has been. We know, it's what church is like, and we don't really want to be a church, so to speak. So what could spiritual community look like? And Dan, Reverend Dan, and his partners have ventured out into this idea of a bricks and clicks ministry. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, Dan.
Yeah, we've
Awesome.
certainly ventured out to the very edges of those branches of like dangling. So we just hosted our 1-year anniversary celebration. I guess it was 2 weeks ago already. But we held a virtual summit, which Reverend Cindy was very graciously a part of. Thank you. And it was amazing because even though we had been around as a community for a year already at that point and kind of doing our whole thing, it almost felt like this like rebirthing out to the world, like announcing to the world again, like, hey, like we're here. We actually know what we're doing now. And so we were super excited about it. And it was a really amazing group of people that came together to speak on all these topics and everything. But one of the things we didn't get to talk about publicly, just because we were hosting the whole thing, was the experience of actually hosting this summit, of bringing these people together and having this group of people that we reached out to going, I hope they can do it. I hope they say yes. I hope they want to play with us. And to have that turn around and every single one of those people be like, oh my God, thank you so much for thinking of me and allowing me to play with you all in this space. We realized we were actually playing small in this idea of what we thought was something that was so big. Why would people want to come do our right? Why would they, like, we're going to ask very nicely so that they come play with us, and to turn it around and realize, oh wow, we're so far leading the way that people are so amazed that they would be asked. Right? It was kind of what it felt like. We're like, oh wow, like this awakening of that thing in us that, like, we just kind of have this tendency to downplay the things we do, right? And so we have really kind of gone out on the edge. And so we kind of, having thought through the whole process of, what is traditional spiritual community? What are all the things that work about it? What are all the things that don't work about it? And so in our mind, we've been just kind of trucking along every step of the way. But to the rest of the world, it's kind of like, well, here's, not the rest of the world, not privy to that conversation. Here's traditional community, and here's us all the way out here. And so a lot of the things we're doing, we don't necessarily have that recognition of on a regular basis of how revolutionary it really is, because it just feels like, well, we've done this every day for the last year plus, but really what it is we took, if you look at all of the needs of a spiritual community and the needs of the people, what are our human needs, what are we looking for, and how do we meet those needs as a society and as a spiritual community. And when you look at what the traditional model currently looks like, it is kind of a really half-assed way of meeting any of those needs. It's like, well, we kind of have like the inspirational thing because we have like the 20-minute message or whatever, and like, okay, fine. Like we kind of have like small group stuff because like people get to come and mingle before or after, but it's not really the small group thing. Like there's kind of some education in there because that gets thrown into the 20-minute message, right? There is, it's kind of large group, ritual or whatever like that kind of looks like, but it's also not really, because we're trying to fit in the education and the inspiration and the spiritual small group, right? So it's like, it's all of these things just kind of mushed together. And also, here's all our announcements, and here's all the, like, just this whole thing of like all this other stuff that we're like, yeah, that doesn't, like, that's great. Like for us, like for those who are in this every day, awesome. Sure. Great. I'm sure like we could find something that moves us in that every week. But for people who are not, like, so for someone who's not in a role, in a job that is like the behind the scenes of like the 7 days a week of a spiritual community, it's such a lackluster experience to come, we hype ourselves up. We've convinced ourselves that like Sunday morning is great. And it can be, and there are places that do it really well, but for the vast majority of us, our needs are not met in a Sunday morning, right? And so we've kind of flipped that all around, to meet the needs of the everyday person, right? Like that person who's just like, they come Sunday mornings. They're not, that center for the most part is not in their mind the other 6 days of the week. Maybe, maybe they're doing Sunday morning in the class, right? But it's like, how do we get the constant, there's a constant reminder that would need to happen for that to be like really important in their lives. So, I used to joke around like, for us, it's every day. We're in this every day, but for them, it's their week for them to be there 7 times is 7 weeks. For us to be here 7 times is 7 days straight, And so anyway, we looked at those needs, say, how do we meet those needs specifically? And how do we do that where location doesn't matter? And so everything that we do is set to meet specifically one of our like most basic spiritual needs of personal transformation. How do we intentionally set out on this personal journey of transformation? How do we bring that personal transformation into a safe space and learn how to like intersect all of our relationships, our spiritual ones and our human ones? How do we take that space of this communal hodgepodge, this mess of like, we get to show up messy, like to have a safe space to show up authentically in a mess and say, this is what's showing up for me. Then how do we take that, once we're learning how to show up together in community, how do we take that and create a communal space that's not based around our individual needs, but the need of the collective community? How do we create a space to do that? And recently has been brought to our attention that there's steps further beyond that we haven't even thought of yet. How do you take that communal thing and allow, a space for communities that are doing that to come together to really, go outward into the world to actually make a difference?
Well, to actually manifest our vision, right? As an organization, we have this vision of a world that works for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think too many of our communities have just stopped there. Okay, like we've done our visioning. We have this, this grand view of what life could be, but no kind of plan or no thought of how do we actually like manifest that? Like, well, first of all, you have to define what that means for everybody, right? A world that works. So my world, when it works for me, it looks a certain way, right? And I'm sure, when your worlds work for you, it looks a certain way that may be different than mine, right? So I think everyone has to find for themselves what works. But you're right, Dan, there are some basic needs that we want to meet in spiritual community that may not get met in other ways. We have a unique opportunity, I think, in spiritual community. And we are the people who, spiritual but not religious. A lot of people, don't want to do church. A lot of people have been burned by, traditional kinds of church. Everybody in these blocks right here came from someplace else, right? Nobody was born into this teaching, right? Correct. So I know, Norma, you're Jehovah's Witness. Extra, yes. Extra. Donna, Pentecostal, right?
Yeah, I was a hodgepodge of Church of God, Pentecostal, and revivalism.
Yeah. And I was Catholic. I don't know. What was yours, Rev Dan?
Oh, I was the whitest of the white, Presbyterian.
So, we all come from different traditions, and here we are in this, I don't know, this salad, this, because everyone is very unique.
Mm-hmm. Right. But you know what? We brought just beautiful perspectives from those, backgrounds. And so that's what I love is that we can all get together and say, hey, this part was cool. This part, not so much, but this part was cool, because there's so many pieces of it that's just so beautiful.
Yeah. Not to, to say that any of it is, well, I think some people would say some of it is bad. Yes. I think some people have been very traumatized by more traditional.
What's interesting about that is because I think my message tends to sound like, to someone who likes the traditional model, I think the message tends to sound like I'm calling all of that bad and we should just like obliterate it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really about it comes down to more about how it's done and not what's actually being done. And there's a lot of really great stuff that the traditional model offers. We just don't do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I don't even know if that we is just like a portion of CSL, if it's all of CSL, or if it's like the whole world. I mean, I don't, I think there's a lot to be said for if there are people who can pull off that traditional model and do it well, and be very vigilant of, there are things in how we are currently doing it that are really damaging and would need to remove those things and not do those things. Mm-hmm. It might work. That's not for me. But it might work.
There's a refining, if you will. We move and we change with the times, and that's it. Just because the history is there and it's a part of who we are doesn't mean that we cannot look at it and then appreciate it, but then improve upon it.
And that's along the lines that I was going to point out. It all begins with an internal transition. You have to figure out what works for us and what doesn't, and then work it out within ourselves, to find what does work and where we can find that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if something works for you, then by all means, rock it, man. But just because it works for you don't mean it's going to work for me. And it's okay. Because again, we're making that world that works for everyone, right? So my world works when I'm happy and I know that you're happy. You ain't got to be happy with my stuff, and I don't have to be happy with your stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love in your bio, Dan, where it says, imagining a world where it is common and lovingly accepted to bear your soul open, openly for others to see. Yeah. And gosh, I think that's the key right there. How do you create space where people can show up and be themselves? the beautiful, the ugly, the like all of it, right? And so much of it, I think, is what we've been talking about this year with this, the Revolutionary Love Project and Valerie's work, is that part of our work as spiritual community is to create the container for people to be able to show up, like people talk about safe space, but not just safe space, it's brave space.
Mhm.
It's brave space. So you can show up in your tears, you can show up in your anger, you can show up in whatever, and know that you're not judged, and help you move through those difficult things. So
Yeah, that's
I
exactly
appreciate that. What was that, Norma?
that's exactly what I was hearing when you were reading his bio. Was the two words that came to me was non-judgmental inclusivity.
Hmm.
Kind of sum that up for me in 2 words.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think too, just like we figure out like the transformational thing, but we haven't figured out how to bring it out into the world, like, as an organization. I think that's the same thing here too. Like, yes, safe space, brave space, and like, it's one thing to have a spiritual community to go to. Like, I know, I have my people that I can show up with and be like, this today it's just not working, and this is what it looks like, and to not feel like, well, you're doing it wrong, and the whole spiritual drive-by thing, right? Like, we get to just show up and get supported and lean into and pray about it, and make room for a healing of whatever needs to be healed. But we haven't started the conversation yet, or at least I haven't, and haven't been part of it yet, of how do we take that? How do we bring, like, imagine if we could all just do that anywhere, right? I mean, there's so much about life that has taught us all we have to show up with this armor on, and don't really share out, like, don't, there's this facade, right? And so I think we've, for a while within this organization, have been consciously or unconsciously having the conversation of breaking down that facade. And so we have those spaces locally where we can show up authentically like that. We haven't started the conversation yet about how to bring authenticity out into the world. Probably because it doesn't feel safe. I don't think it, for so many reasons, it doesn't feel safe. But imagine if we could start doing that. Imagine if we could start creating spaces, like almost like carrying a space with us.
Yeah.
That we get to, right? Like, that's a whole other, talk about a world that works for everyone. That's a whole other vision.
I love that. And yes, I get that.
Man, that's where we vibe, man. That's where we vibe, because Norma and I, everywhere we go, we carry the CSL feeling with us everywhere. And we create this tribal community space everywhere we go. And even now, like, people are like, last night leaving work, they were, oh my God, it's your last night. And I was like, and they're like, oh my gosh, almost as if I'm going to take the piece with me. It's the strangest feeling. But I'm like, you can do it too. And I really honestly believe that that's where Jesus was. You can do it too, And so all of the great teachers that are out there, whatever modality somebody chooses, I believe that we can really create a space that's safety for all of us, even in the traditional stuff. But it has to refine and change.
Yeah.
And there can't be the, non-judgmental. That's the key right there, Norma.
Yeah.
And I have to say, props to you ladies, my practitioners. We're a small center, Dan. We have 2 practitioners. You're looking at them.
Yeah. Awesome.
And, and they're partners in life and in business and everything. And their home, Ivory House is just the place people want to go, because it feels good. It feels safe. It feels like home. And I can see that, Donna, in you, that you take home wherever you go. Yeah. And that's part of what I want people to get in our community, is to know that, home isn't just a place. Home, you can carry that inside of you. And you can carry it in such a way that other people can feel at home in your presence. Right. And then the next thing is for them to understand how to have that for themselves. Right. And that's how we create that ripple effect, right? Of everywhere we go, like, you're a center of peace and of calm and of love and of joy and what it means, the best of home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah.
that idea.
And it gives people hope. It gives, why I was telling, I don't remember which one of the nurses I was talking to yesterday about me and Norma, and that I never saw this before, this kind of relationship where you have this loving, beautiful, open relationship before. So I didn't have it in my mind that it even existed. And now when we go around people, they're like, wow, this really does exist. Hope I can find someone that I have this kind of connection with, and we talk to them and yeah, you can, that kind of thing. So if we have that same thing for ourselves individually, oh, even with all my bumps and bruises and all my stuff and life still happening to me, here I stand in a world that works for me. And you
Mhm.
can do the same, and you can do the same, and you can do the same. And then when we see something that needs to work for everyone, we all collectively get together and change it,
Mm-hmm.
modify, you know? And that's how we create this world. But Cindy, you're right. It has to start here.
Hmm. And you can't make anybody do it, it's not a strong arm kind of
No.
thing, right? It's
Mm-mm.
like allowing. So we
Yeah.
start with I call it the coalition of the willing. Like
Yeah.
who wants to be on
Yeah.
board?
Yeah.
I don't want
Hmm.
to be the boss of anybody. I say it all the time. I'm not anybody's guru, nor do I want to be.
Yeah.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which way I want to go with this. Like there are the things that we know don't work. There are the things, and we've talked about some of the things that we want to bring forward, right? That feeling of home. I think one of the things that for me personally doesn't work in spiritual, traditional church spiritual community is the hierarchy, right? Of the like there's the minister up here and there's the practitioners and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't remember. I was asked to do a guest speaking in it was not a New Thought church, it was someplace else. And they were so excited. I was going to be speaking on love or something. It was for Valentine's Day. And I had never been to this place. And they had me like, oh, I don't even know. If it was a ballroom, it was something, but I was like way up, like a couple of stories. I had to go up like 2 flights of stairs so that I could be in this pulpit and look down
Look
on
down at
everyone.
everything.
Holy moly. It was just one of the most uncomfortable things ever. And I don't like heights either. But so from that perspective, I didn't like it, but also just, like the imagery of it, because that's one of the things, that we know we're all on a spiritual path. We're all, part of that oneness. And so that whole thing of the minister up here and everybody else is down here doesn't work for me.
Mm.
No.
Right. So that's one of the things that I do not want to bring forward.
Yeah.
Certainly someone
Wouldn't it
has
be
to be
interesting?
leadership, right?
Right. There's leadership and structure, and some people just process that way, and it's just they're just really good at the skill that says, okay, let's all bring everybody, all your different blah blah blahs together, and let's make the best of yada yada yada. That's what the leader does, and that's
Mm.
what you do so beautifully, Cindy. You lead by example, and that's
Well,
what I
thank
love
you.
about you. Yeah. You
Yeah.
carry home with you, and you are a dear friend, and you are a connected soul, and you are doing your spiritual journey, and you are very open and aware and share about what's going on with you. And as you are doing it, people are going, "Man, if she could do it, I can do it too."
Yeah.
And that's why we follow.
Well, that's the idea, right?
That's the
The-
idea.
yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's
I think
better
that,
than anyone.
Hmm. I felt like when I found Centers for Spiritual Living, and it wasn't called that back then, but when I found it, it was like I almost felt like I found the cure for cancer or something. Like this can fix
Yeah.
everything, man. If
yeah.
people just knew this, like I
Mm,
want to share this with everybody. And you find out real quick it's really not for everybody. Not everybody
mm-mm.
is up for doing the work.
Yeah.
Um,
They're not ready.
Well,
yeah,
No.
but lots of people are.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
The first thing that comes to my mind like immediately when you mentioned the word hierarchy. So there was actually a class in ministerial school, Paradigms of Consciousness, and one of the sections in that class was all about, it was called Rehabilitating the Hierarchy. And it was, I mean, it was talking about science and the idea that consciousness goes all the way up and all the way down, that everything, that there is a hierarchy of development in terms of cells, but that didn't mean that the thing at the top of that hierarchy of development had any more consciousness or less consciousness than the thing at the bottom. It was just how we named it. But what became really, really clear to me about that was how that plays out in so many other ways. And hierarchy, like in the United States specifically, and I don't know outside of the United States because I've never really spent an extended time in any, but my guess is probably the Western world. Hierarchy equates to power. And it's all, like, literally, I mean, everything in the US is about power. And if it gives you power, it's good. If it takes power away, it's bad. And so we've all, I mean, we've not lived in an era where that hasn't been true. So, like, it permeates so much of, like, those default unconscious thoughts that still exist in the collective subjective mind, right? That there is this power good kind of equation running behind. And so I think one of the reasons so many people are not ready or don't think they're ready or not attracted to this type of philosophy is because it asks you to take personal responsibility. It's really convenient to not have to take responsibility for shit going wrong in your life. Mm-hmm. All right, I don't know if we're at that level of speaking.
Yeah, we are.
It's really easy to not have to take that responsibility, right? Like, we just, cool. Like, the grace of God, I can do whatever I want is kind of what it's turned into a little bit. Mm-hmm. The other part of that is all of the structures, like, these people have power, these people have less power, these people have no power. And that's just been, like, for all of us, that's been, right? And so the people who don't want to step out of that because they're comfortable where they're at, it doesn't matter where we're at, but like that hierarchy, because we've equated power up and down that hierarchy, it's like, well, I know what I have when I'm here. And if I don't have that, I don't know what I have, because that's what's become really important. And so I think that, if we kind of take this, if we rehabilitate the idea of hierarchy and remove the power from it and just recognize, like, in this space, there's someone who is facilitating this space, and they're not better than anyone else. They don't necessarily have more power than anyone else. They're just the one who spends their time focusing on this thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, if you follow cultures back, like, forever, since the beginning of, we started recording history, every culture has always had one person whose life was dedicated towards spending their time being conscious of the spiritual attributes of that group. And we've always had that person. And so when did that person come into power? When did they become a role of power? As soon as we started talking, global domination, and right. I mean, that's a whole other thing that should be totally separate from, anyway, I think it's possible to, one of the reasons I say this, like, if we look at this organization and probably others, like, one of the reasons the organization kind of does this on a lot of topics is because if you really look at it, we don't have any one group or one person who actually makes decisions on things. We have a concentric set of circles that pass decisions around, and decisions don't really get made. We don't really know what it is that we're standing for. We don't really know what the vision or the direction is. We don't really know what are we doing, because we just kind of pass things around, right? So without this is how we make decisions, there is some sort of right. And maybe there is another alternative other than something that appears like a hierarchy, right? But we don't. We try to flatten the whole thing and say everyone is equal, which on a lot of levels, like absolutely. And we need to pick somebody or a group of somebody to be like, figure it out, like come up with a decision. And we kind of did, but then that group was like, well, we don't want to like make anybody angry or scare anybody away. We don't really want to step on toes. And it's like, can we just please just come up with just pick a direction? I don't care, but there has to be like that thing. There has to be something set to do that. And maybe that's just the pendulum swinging too far the other direction. I don't know, but kind of interesting.
It's
so funny. This is so funny because I think that human beings, we just do this to each other. We do. And there's some people who clearly thrive at picking stuff apart and seeing the small new details and putting it together so beautifully that we can all just follow the path because they know the map, because they have drawn the map.
Right?
And that person's the leader, and we just say, yes, in this case you're the one that we're going to trust because you have dedicated, like you said, your time and your focus in this direction. And that's why I'm like, when people say, well, I'm already a minister in ADL. In ADL, the ministerial program was not very long. In CSL, dude, the classes y'all go through.
Tell me. I know.
Talk about polishing and opening up your mind and just pouring out and really picking apart. And I just really appreciate that. And that's why we have spiritual leadership. Because you guys go through that stuff and you guys pick it apart, and that's what practitioners do. And that's what we encourage everybody to become a practitioner. Do it. At the very least, become a practitioner, because all it means is a practitioner is somebody who practices a lot.
Who gets the tools, right? It's that deep dive.
And you understand it and you learn. I tell people it's like everybody can flip the light switch, but not everybody knows how to put in the wiring. We can all flip the light switch though.
Awesome. So I'm looking at the time, and we need to like kind of wrap up this conversation. It's very interesting. I think we could do a part 2.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's see if we can boil it down. I don't know. What we want to leave of the old thing, right, is too much of the hierarchy, right? But as we bring forward new ways of decision making, so decisions are actually made. Like, we don't just talk about the vision. Let's now, put some movement to this, some pedal to the metal, and like actually start working in a direction to make this so, not just for the individuals, but that ripple, right? I think that's a piece of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And what else? I don't know. I think online is a great forum. I think that's a big part of our future.
Yeah. I would add to that, a bigger look at the idea of spiritual but not religious is a reaction to how religiosity shows up. But things that we do religiously is not necessarily a bad thing. And so there is also that balance in, yes, we are spiritual, but there are also a lot of things that we do religiously that can be just as powerful without being like a toxic religion, right? Like there's a way of kind of refining, like Donnie said before, about refining the things, right? We can refine what religion is. Because I think one of the kind of ironic things, because I was totally like, yeah, forget all that. Let's just move forward, But even just in this year of intentionally, focusing on community building, one of the things that became really apparent was one of the things you do as a community is set aside sacred time to do things as a community where it's not about any one of us, but it's about the whole of the community. And we realized we were recreating like a ritual space. which started to
Right.
sound very religious. I was like, oh wow, there's a whole 360 on that. So there's something in that. Like there's something in that idea of refining the things that worked, the things that are important to us, on that soul level, and implementing those in a new way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. To be continued.
Yeah.
Because we are going to talk
Yeah.
about that, in terms of our specific, our center.
Oh, cool.
Specifically what we're doing, because we don't want to recreate church. We want to create opportunities for people to come together and gather in those safe spaces. We do want to have some ritual, because I think there's a richness to that, as you said, Dan, that helps bring people together. And different ways of expressing, so the music and the drum circles and the movies and poetry slams and those kind of things, Oh my gosh, in games. I just want to give you guys props for if you haven't seen it was the last session of the summit, and it's still online, right? It's available for people. Yeah. So how many of us were there? 9?
9 of us.
I think it was 9 people. So we're on the screen, right? All 9 of us. It looked like Hollywood squares. And then it was like how to pick the who was answering which question. There was this thing that went around and it stopped and it picked the number. So it was like a game show.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was
how
really
fun.
Yeah, it did add a little something to the
We do like to have fun.
Oh my God. And there is another, the other thing that was mentioned in that, this we'll get into in December, is the idea of pleasure activism. Yes, I'll just put that teaser out there. Pleasure activism,
I love it.
In the world of the activists are often depicted as being very angry. So there are people within that movement that are bringing people over and being like, it's not all about what's happening outside. Work on yourself, right? Bringing the spirituality to activism. Where I'm on the other end with the spiritual people, right? Trying to pull them over here, come out of your, get off your yoga mat. There's things happening in the world. We have this amazing teaching. We need to share it. So, we're pulling from both ends, right? The spiritual, pulling them to be more active, and the activists to be more spiritual. And I think pleasure activism is where, those things meet. It doesn't have to be drudgery.
Yeah.
Right? We all have a right to feel pleasure and joy, and gosh, it makes life worthwhile, doesn't it? I get pleasure and joy out of having these conversations, and out of playing in the same sandbox with my friends, and having these conversations with people that want to have them.
Yeah, I do too.
I love it. Right? Hanging out at your house, Donna and Norma, there's always going to be food. There's always going to be conversation, some kind of laughter, game, right? Music.
Singing.
Singing, dancing.
Drumming, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Fire pit,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm there. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Definitely. Come on
You're not
down.
too far, Dan. Come
That's
on.
Right.
Yeah.
Come on down, or come on up. Right?
Come on up. Bring a friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's the kind of thing that we get to do. And we got to do that here in Atlanta, to go and see people who are in our greater community, because CSL Ocala used to be just in Ocala. And then when COVID happened, CSL Ocala became the outskirts of Ocala and beyond. And so now we have just stretched ourselves to now bring in all these different people into our community that might be parts of other communities, but still kind of just flowing over and having conversations and, playing in the same sandbox together. And it's really cool.
And I think that's where the great idea of the bricks and clicks come in. Sure, we can gather more often online, but, every now and then, get together and do something.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, Dan, would you, before we close out, tell us about the program you all have coming up with Soul Evolution Collaborative?
Oh, yeah. So, speaking of one of those rituals, So we realized that like almost every culture and philosophy, religion, whatever, since like the beginning of time, tends to have this period of time at the end of the year where they celebrate light. Some cultures at other times of the year, whatever. But what we realized was, as religious scientists within Science of Mind and CSL, we tend to just borrow pieces of all of these things, but we don't have anything that's really our own yet. We don't have like a holiday that is Science of Mind holiday. So what we decided was, well, we didn't decide anything. We were being pulled towards this idea that it's time for us as a philosophy to have something of our own. And so through visioning, what came out of this was what we're calling Celebrating 31 Expressions of Light. So we're taking the month of December to celebrate light in all of its forms and in all the ways that we use the idea of light and talk about the idea of light. And we're going to, we through visioning came up with 31 different words that are attributes of light, aspects of light, expressions of light. And we're going to celebrate one of those every day for the whole month of December. Celebrate one attribute of light per day. So there's a couple of things that are going to happen. One is we're going to go live for just a couple of moments every night at 8:31 every day and talk about, I think we're actually going to have, I think we're bringing back the wheel, Cindy, where we're actually going to pick that night out of a hat, we're spinning the wheel, what the word is for that day. But so that night we're going to pick a word and then we'll have some content, kind of predetermined for that word, but talk about what that word means, how it shows up as an expression of light. We'll have a reading for that word. And then there will be a charge or an activity, something that we will each get asked to do then the next day to participate in how we actually celebrate or recognize that expression of light. Simple things, really easy things that we can all participate in doing. And then the next night, get back online and do the same thing. We'll pull a new word, do a reading, talk about the word, and then have announce this activity for the next day. So we are inviting anyone who is interested in this to participate in doing this. If you do want email reminders about it, you can sign up for it at our website, soulevolutioncollaborative.org. You can go to the events tab and sign up for celebrating the 31 expressions of light. But it's just going to be a lot of fun. I mean, whether it's, I think it's something we'll probably continue doing each year, but whether this is the only time you do it or whether it does turn into something that is an annual thing, isn't it nice to have something that is greater than just any one of our communities, but that we can all celebrate in together. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Love it. Thank you, Dan. I've got the picture up there. Soul Evolution Collaborative, Personal Transformation, Communal Evolution at www.soulevolutioncollaborative.org. And yep. We will be participating. I'm sure I'll do something with you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we
one of those nights.
We have things for you to do. You personally, Cindy. No one,
yeah.
Everyone else just gets to watch, but you get to do.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, Dan. Thank you, Donna, Norma, for hanging out and playing today. And we will be continuing this conversation. I hope, we didn't even talk about Thanksgiving, but I'm just grateful for you all. I'm grateful for this community and this philosophy and so much. I mean, so much. Hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. All right.
Thank you.
Love you.
Much love.
See you guys.
See y'all on Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. Let me just tell you, and I think it's in the comments section. When we're done with this at 4:00, we go on to Zoom for whoever wants to join us, and we just do a check-in with our community. And if people have prayer requests, we do that, or take a deeper dive into the conversation. We never know what's going to happen. So you're welcome to join us, Reverend Dan. We'd love to have you. And Don and Norma, are you going to be on, or yes, no, maybe?
Yeah,
I'll
be
traveling, but Don will be on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Terrific. Thank you all again. Much love. Take care.
Guys.
We will go into the next part of our program today, which is, that was a great conversation. I'm looking forward to part 2. We're talking specifically about what we're going to do here at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala as we reopen post-COVID in January. There'll be a couple of events before then. I think we're looking at a karaoke night and maybe a jump circle, but we're gearing up for our in-person reopening come January. And so I'm excited about that. And now time for sharing our gifts and tithes. This is spiritual practice. We give and we receive. And so if money is tight and you need money, give some money, because that's what plants the seed for that to return to you. So what we put out comes back. So you want friendship, go out there and make a friend, be a friend to somebody, give love, but give what it is that you want to receive, and give from your abundance. And if the place where you feel spiritually fed is CSL Ocala, we are thrilled, and we have lots of ways to accept your money. So it's going across the bottom of the screen there. A couple of ways you can do it. You can go to our website at cslocala.org/donate, or text to tithe from your smartphone. You text the number 352-320-5110, and you put in the amount that you would like to send us. And once it's set up, it goes right from your account to ours, and it's super easy and super fun. So this is an affirmation. I just invite you to make it your own. It is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. And I just know and affirm that each one of you is blessed, and each one of you is a blessing to the people in your circles of influence. And so I'm also going to affirm that every one of us, everybody that's on this call and feels that sense of being at home within themselves wherever they go this holiday season. Sometimes families challenging, but you can have that sense of home right inside of your own heart. Carry it wherever you go, and let other people feel that presence of love and being at home when they are with you. Let's see if we've got any comments here to address. Oh, lots of people traveling. Chris Hatfield, soulevolutioncollaborative.org. Yes, ma'am. I think that wraps it up. So we'll do our closing prayer, which comes from, nope, wrong one. Here's the closing prayer. This comes from our sister organization, folks at Unity. It is a prayer from James Dillett Freeman, and it's super easy. Gosh, I learned this so many years ago and taught it to my kids, and they're in their 30s now, teaching it to their kids. So the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. So I affirm that all is well in your world this week as you do whatever it is you're doing, celebrating, eating, giving thanks, loving, whatever life puts before you. I just affirm you have what it takes to get beyond it and to get to that greater yet to be. From loving and light to each one of you. Happy Thanksgiving. See you on Zoom, or we'll see you next week. Love and blessings.